Welcome back, everyone, to another playthrough on New Campaign Trail. You guys seem to really like it when I play these. It's a great way to talk about the real history. And right now, what seems to be doing really well on YouTube is anything related to presidential elections. So we're going to kind of ride that wave for as long as it lasts. And yesterday we talked about the first president who had non-consecutive terms, which was Grover Cleveland, and that reason that he had non-consecutive terms is that he lost the election of 1888 to Indiana Senator Benjamin Harrison. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take on the role of Grover Cleveland in the 1888 election and see if we can turn it around and win that election. Now, it shouldn't be that hard to do because this was a really close election in which the deciding states were the swing states of Indiana and New York. And you had a senator born in Ohio, but a senator from Indiana at the top of the ticket for the Republicans, and his vice presidential running mate was from New York. And those two states were deciding factors. And there's some possibility there was some fraud going on in Indiana. In the end, it wouldn't have mattered because even without Indiana, he would have won the election. But I don't think it'll take much if we do everything well as Cleveland to win this election. So let's go ahead and dive into this. The link is down in the description to New Campaign Trail if you want to play this for yourself. You have to do it through the mod. So I'm actually going to show you how to load this mod to play this 1888 election. So if you go to newcampaigntrail.com, you're going to see here, you can click to begin, but you don't want to do that. What you want to do is go down here to where it says mod loader on the bottom right, click on that, and then you can sort this by historical elections, and you can go to the 1888 election here, and then just hit load, and hit click here to begin, and there you go, you've got it. So we're going to choose this, the 1888 election. We're going to play as Grover Cleveland, the incumbent president from the state of New York. And just kind of reading the intro here, there are times when Grover Cleveland seems like a one-man army. In 1884, he upset the postbellum order, seizing the presidency as a reformist and a bourbon Democrat. He achieved mixed results. His liberal use of the veto, especially for Civil War pensions and the Texas Seed Bill, has frustrated some. Elsewhere, he's a committed sound money man and a foreign policy non-interventionist. The issue dominating this election is tariff policy. Cleveland is an aggressive opponent of tariffs, dedicating his whole State of the Union address was dedicated to opposing tariffs, whereas Benjamin Harrison and the Republicans are running on raising tariffs. One of the big proponents of that is, of course, Ohio Congressman William McKinley, who has the McKinley tariff and is going to become governor of Ohio and then replace Cleveland after Cleveland's second term as president. So tariffs are going to play a big role in this, as we've said before. Tariffs are the main source of revenue for the federal government, and of course that's also a main source of corruption, are the people who are involved in those tariffs. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I think I might consider switching up the running mate. We'll see what our options are. This is Alan Thurman from Ohio. He is the one who actually was Cleveland's running mate, though Cleveland did not win the state of Ohio. This was pretty much a north-south election. Cleveland swept the South. He won New Jersey, which is the state he was born in, but pretty much lost everything else. Our main goal here is to win our home state of New York. So our only other option is Isaac Gray of Indiana, and that's actually not a bad idea to go right at Indiana as one of the swing states in this election. But Isaac Gray used to be a Republican, but he could make for an unorthodox presence on the campaign trail, maybe even woo disaffected Republicans away from Harrison. It would be a giant gamble. So it may be that I regret this, but I am going to go ahead and choose Gray for this. So we're going to do winner take all, which is how it works. And so the key here is going to be to keep an eye on New York and Indiana, because those are our best chances. New York, historically, Cleveland lost by about 15,000 votes. Indiana was much closer, and there are some serious, probably accurate allegations of the Republicans bringing in non-resident voters to the state of Indiana to swing that election. So, I don't know if that'll come up in this or not, but You've just been renominated unanimously by the Democratic Convention in St. Louis. Broadly speaking, what will be your pitch to voters this campaign season? Now, I think it was a mistake for Cleveland to go so hard on tariffs. But let's take a look at, obviously, I mean, the Deep South we're good. And they're very opposed to tariffs, always have been. Tariffs have always been a North-South thing. But let's look at some of these states we want to try and win, like New York. They're somewhat supportive of tariffs, but we don't want to go hard on tariffs because that's going to, I think, alienate some of them. Indiana, supportive of tariffs. Ohio is also supportive of tariffs. So we don't want to go too hard in opposing because we already got the South anyway. We might have to take kind of a middle ground on tariffs. So we've had 4 years of good common sense government under my administration. I created the Interstate Commerce Commission, reformed the civil service, and held the line against a wasteful, belligerent Congress. I have also worked to reduce tariffs when feasible. So, yeah, I mean, corruption's a big deal. That's always going to work to our advantage to campaign on our opposition to corruption. But I'm not, like I said, going to focus heavy on tariffs. Character, I don't know that there's a problem with the character of Harrison. Let's see. Let's not complicate it too much. You know what? I'm gonna focus on the Interstate Commerce Commission, reform civil service, and held the line, and also work to reduce tariffs when feasible. Let's see if that works. It's never a bad idea to stress your own accomplishments. People also notice your relatively muted rhetoric on tariffs, which comes with the ups and downs. Yeah, but like I said, the people who oppose tariffs the strongest, I've already got. So we do need to keep an eye on North Carolina, but that did swing Ohio some in our direction. And Indiana and New York, they're all looking pretty good. So I feel already like we've definitely helped ourselves. The political debate this year is dominated by the tariff issue. What stance will you take regarding it? I will reaffirm the baseline Democratic position and move on. I hope we don't get tunnel vision. That's good. Let's not make this all about tariffs. Republican spin doctors would like you to believe that I support totally unrestricted free trade. This is false. I support a reduction in tariffs, but some tariffs are necessary to fund the federal government, especially in developing industries. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. You're toning down your rhetoric here, which isn't a bad thing. This is a noticeable shift from your annual message. Yeah, I feel like Cleveland really shot himself in the foot, making his entire State of the Union that previous year before the election about tariffs. So we're backing off from that some. To what extent will you personally campaign for votes? Cleveland didn't do that. Harrison didn't do it much either, other than the front porch speeches. That was kind of standard at that time. Isaac Gray has no... Yeah, and this is actually true. The vice presidential running mates often did a lot of the campaigning. So, yeah, it's unbecoming. You know what? I'll give plenty of front porch speeches of my own. Let's do that. Gray's a divisive campaigner, effective in the North, hated in the South, but your speeches are a considerable success, rivaling Harrison's own. So far, I feel like we're doing a fairly good job here. I mean, we're up a good 100 points in the electoral votes, so that's what we want to see. So far, so good. Okay, the Bland-Allison Act passed in 1878 over then President Rutherford Hayes' veto, requiring the U.S. Treasury to purchase silver and issue silver dollars annually. Do you think it should be repealed? So it was, in fact, repealed during Cleveland's second term, but that was in 1893. And this was one of the other big debating issues that was going on in the latter half of the 19th century, which was this idea of bimetallism, silver and gold rather than just a gold standard. It did end up being repealed. I don't know anybody who's satisfied by this act. Gold standard men oppose any kind of silver coinage, and the bimetallists in the West reject it as not radical enough. It should be repealed as soon as possible. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. Everybody knows that you oppose the Bland-Allison Act, but criticizing it from both a bimetallist perspective and a gold standard perspective may soften the blow out west. All right, so I feel like so far we are making the right choices with this. It's still going to be super close, and you can look and we can see how people feel about gold. The states we're trying to win do tend to lean toward the gold standard, so we probably want to be careful not to go too crazy with this. The South is all bimetallist, but again, we've got the South already, so we can probably lean into the gold standard a little bit. You've controversially vetoed numerous pension bills of Civil War veterans, including a pension for non-service-related disabilities. And eventually this was allowed. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but you do end up seeing pensions for Civil War veterans happening for things that had nothing to do with the war itself, just people getting old and getting sick later in life. I don't know if this is something that is... No, we don't really get to see the stance on pensions, but obviously the pensions for Civil War veterans are going to be in the North, so we're probably going to want to come down on the side of this. If Congress immediately overrides any claim they reject, then what's the point of having a pension bureau? Last thing we need is make myself vulnerable for political attacks on this front. We will issue an apology and move on. Okay. Harrison isn't pushing you too hard on this issue, and you lose some credibility for folding under pressure like this. Okay, so people kind of viewed that as a flip-flop. That did not help me at all. So that was a mistake. Last year, in response to anti-competitive railroad practices, you signed the Interstate Commerce Act, the first federal law to directly regulate a private industry. Do you think the federal government should play a larger role? And here's the thing. Grover Cleveland's a small government guy, a conservative. He's not somebody who typically waded a lot into giving the government more power. Corruption, obviously, is something that is not important everywhere, but it's very important in places like New York and Indiana. Oh, it's unimportant in Indiana. Okay. Let's see. In most cases, no, but state laws on this matter were ruled unconstitutional, and the railroad company's practices were getting egregious. Something had to be done. So I agree with him on this, that, you know, he's saying, listen, normally we shouldn't be using the power of the federal government in this way, but in this case, it was an exception. So I like that. This is a truthful answer that defends your actions while stressing your conservative position on the broader issue. All right, good. You have in the past promised to return the return of captured Confederate battle flags. Heck no. Heck no, don't do it. Don't do it. Keep them in the North. This has been vigorously protested by the Grand Army of the Republic. So the GAR is, it's a Union veteran organization. This is like the VFW would be today, Veterans of Foreign Wars. We are not going to cross the GAR when we're trying to win things in the North. The strife and tumult of the Civil War is over. No, drop it. We're going to drop it. Absolutely. Good thinking. At a nationwide level, anytime the Civil War is brought up, it's a net negative for Democrats. Remember, the Democrats were either the ones that were in the South, who were prosecuting the war for the South, or many times the Democrats in the North were copperheads. They were fighting for peace. They were fighting for an end to the war. They didn't want to fight a war to preserve the Union. So, yeah, the Democrats don't want the Civil War to be a topic. All right, where are we at? We're still doing all right. Electoral vote estimate is now much closer, though, and we've got still about 2/3 of the way to go. Recently, some Republicans have been leveling nasty personal attacks at you. They claim you're an alcoholic and abuse your wife, and have taken to calling you the Beast of Buffalo. Your response? We're going to have Frances herself release a statement completely rebuking these claims. So Frances Folsom is his wife. She was also his kind of like foster daughter. After his law partner died, he raised her from adolescence and then married her when she was like 21. We're going to have Frances address this. Harrison, who has played no part in the spreading of these rumors, seems content with an issue-focused election. This won't stop either of your supporters from spreading propaganda, though. All right, so I think we were good there. We gained a little bit back. I don't think we're going to get North Carolina, but I'm not too worried about that. I would like to get Tennessee, though. Let's take a look at your native New York for a moment. David B. Hill. This is going to be a huge one for us because we have to win New York. Who runs an anti-Cleveland coalition led by Tammany Hall, has been nominated for governor. This badly splits New York Democrats. Any comment on Hill's candidacy? Yeah, this is a tough one. Unity is more important than anything else. I hope that New Yorkers vote Democratic up and down the ballot, including both of our elections. Yeah, I think I'm going to call for unity. It's good to show a united front, but Hill is sympathetic to the most insular, corrupt machines of the New York Democratic Party. That's true. I mean, this doesn't help me with the whole corruption thing, which is a good issue for me, but it does look like it helped me in New York and in the North in general. We're back up to 259. I like how this is going so far. Do you believe that immigration, particularly from China, is a net good for the United States? There's strong vitriol against Chinese immigrants from the native population, especially out west. So the Chinese Exclusion Act obviously is a source of criticism to this day. We're not doing particularly well out west. I'm not too worried about those electoral votes because they're not very strong votes. But let's look at ethnic voters, some, few, many. I don't need to worry about alienating the West because I'm not going to win them anyway. I'm concerned by some of the outrages we've seen against Chinese immigrants, but the truth is that they are unlikely to assimilate into American society. No. So we could ask about quotas to stem the flow. We could come hard against the Chinese Exclusion Act. This is one that I think I'm going to go the middle ground here. This is definitely pretty nativist, especially for Democratic candidate. Going after the Chinese is fair game, but you're killing or standing with white ethnic groups. All right, so we probably should have just gone after the Chinese. That killed us in New York. Oh boy. Okay, that actually put Harrison back ahead. So that's probably our second biggest miscue so far. Right now, about 200,000 Indians live in the United States, scattered mostly on reservations out west. What approach toward Indian policy will you take in your second term? So supporting the Dawes Act, I think we'll go with that. Most people are comfortable with the Dawes Act's provisions, and the Indian policy is hardly the defining issue of this election. Okay. Yeah. Boy. This is going to be close. We're halfway there. Corruption and civil service reform were key to your upset victory in 1884. How do you want to handle these issues in the election? No, I don't want to focus on the tariff debate. I will reference this extensively in a biographical context and refrain from slandering Harrison, who is a respectable man. I think that's a good way to do it. This is a good approach. This race is mostly devoid of the vitriol that characterized the 1884 campaign. Yeah, and Harrison is looking for a clean campaign on the issues. Yeah, I think both of these guys are pretty solid. Benjamin Harrison's solid in terms of his character. Fun fact about Harrison, we were actually talking about this on Twitter today. So Benjamin Harrison, his first wife dies during his term in office, and then he remarries a few years later. And has another child very late in life when he's in his 60s. And that child grew up to have a daughter who married the great-grandson of President James Garfield. And they had a child. So their child is a descendant of both Presidents Garfield and Harrison. The temperance movement, a mass movement advocating for abstinence from alcoholic beverages, has been gaining steam. All right, so this is interesting because there were a number of third parties that ran during this campaign. And one of them was a temperance party that garnered enough votes that you could argue swung the election in some of those key states because of how close the election was. Surely we can all get behind a law to stop public drunkenness, but something like a prohibition amendment is another story. Is this something that we're talking about? No, it's not. Yeah, surely we can give it. Yeah, I'll go the middle road. Few people find a stance like this objectionable. Okay, cool. Looks like we're moving back ahead ever so slightly in a couple of those key states. It's going to be close. You've generally governed as a non-interventionist on this foreign policy spectrum. This includes your blocking of the Frelinghuysen-Zavala Treaty negotiated during President Arthur's lame duck term. Do you stand by your foreign policy record? So let's talk about this treaty for a second. So this was the treaty that actually Woodrow Wilson, I've got him on my brain. That's never a good thing. Grover Cleveland ends up withdrawing it from senatorial consideration. If you're not familiar with how our system of government works in the United States, while a president, as the chief executive, and the chief diplomats that work for him can negotiate a treaty, treaties have to be ratified by the U.S. Senate. And so this treaty was negotiated to construct a canal in Nicaragua that would be jointly owned by the two nations. This is similar to eventually what will happen with the Panama Canal. But he ended up withdrawing that because he was somebody, like I said, who, like has been said, was anti-interventionist. And so it would be in keeping with Cleveland's foreign policy to withdraw from this. We need to drastically scale back our foreign policy commitments. Last thing we need to do is go on these fanatical colonialist conquests like some Republicans are always talking about. I will always oppose imperialism, but I'm not some kind of pushover. Boy, this is a tough one. Yeah, I think we'll go this route. Stressing a strong foreign policy record may help slightly with imperialist types in the North, though the effect is minor. Hey, every little bit of help we can get in the North, I'll take. Looks like that hurt us in Indiana, though. But we're still ahead, so that's good. Do you think more should be done at the federal level to protect voting rights in the South? So, see, we're solid in the South. I'm not worried about losing Southern voters. Good people of the South and their institutions deserve our respect. Now, I'm not going to respect a system in which they are suppressing blacks from even feeling like they can go to the polls. Make sure that every male Southerner, regardless of race or class, has the opportunity to vote. This only further damages your standing among Southern Democrats. I don't care. I'm winning them anyway. Look what it... Oh, wow. It actually killed me in the North. That I wasn't expecting. Dang, that swung things heavily. Ooh, okay. One of your most controversial vetoes remains the Texas seed bill, which would have allotted $10,000 to purchase seed grain for farmers. Yeah, let's express regret on this issue because I think it might help me in places like Indiana, too. You got to stand for something. Okay. I can't believe that of all the things that would hurt me, it would be standing for voting rights. It would kill me in the North. A very niche issue for now is women's suffrage. I'll criticize polygamy. Yeah. Okay, that didn't really, again, help me with any of the key constituencies, though. Oh, I can't believe I'm going to lose this election on standing for civil rights in the South. Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia. Given your selection of Isaac Gray as your running mate, do you think this is a cause for concern? Reaffirm our commitment to states' rights and a limited federal government while keeping our ground presence mainly in the North. Wait, this is an unfortunate development. Our main concern should be winning larger northern swing states. Yes, definitely. Winning New York and losing Virginia is certainly preferable to winning Virginia and losing New York. But now I'm getting killed. It's been estimated recently that the wealthiest 1% of Americans control approximately 25% of the nation's total wealth. Should anything be done about the growing wealth gap? All right, so what do people in New York think about this? They're conservative. Encourage them to engage in philanthropy. It's a good way to stick to your laissez-faire economic philosophy without seeming totally heartless. This philosophy is shared by the philanthropist magnates like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. So Rockefeller's from Ohio, so yeah, it's not helping me with Ohio, though. Indiana Democrats have obtained a letter written by Republican Politico William Wade Dudley. Yes, this was 100% true. This is what I alluded to earlier. And I actually don't have a choice on this one. It did turn out to be true that the Republicans were using non-residential voters in Indiana to swing that election. Floaters, that's what it's called. All right, Ohio and New York are back in play. Indiana's looking all right. James G. Blaine proposed a constitutional amendment to stop public funding of parochial schools, but it was barely defeated in the Senate. Many saw this as explicitly anti-Catholic. What do you think of this idea? I stand for universal free education, just as I always have. Yeah. This is a baseline Democratic issue that you can't go wrong with. Okay, cool. But New York and Ohio just swung back toward the Republicans. How do you feel about the admittance of Western territories into the Union as states? Yeah, they've met the standards. You know what, I'll just say, I'll just go more generic on that one. Republicans have leaked a letter from Sir Lionel Sackville West, the British ambassador to the United States, suggesting that you are the preferable candidate from the British perspective. This will no doubt gravely hurt you with the Irish vote. Ugh. Yeah, that killed me in New York. Oh my gosh. I was doing so well in this election. And the run-up to the election was the final message. All right, we'll go there. I don't think I can win this at this point. We might end up swinging Indiana, but it won't matter. We lost Tennessee. Ugh. It's now 1 week until Election Day. So what do we do here? Do we go for New York? Will that be enough? I don't think that New York's going to be enough in this case. The 36 that we would swing in New York would still not be enough to win the election. And we're down by 5 points there. Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana I don't think would be enough either. That's 23, 15, that's 38, 40, 60. That would just barely lose the election for us, but that's what we're going to do. Yeah. I can't believe civil rights is what cost me this election. Unreal. As soon as we see New York come in for Harrison, that's going to pretty much do it. Yeah, I mean, things look good early on, but that's because, yeah, we lost Virginia. The states that have already come in are ones that are going to favor us anyway. We're going to probably lose Tennessee. But, I mean, the good news is I learned a few things, and I could probably play through it again real fast and win this time. We lost Ohio. We lost Illinois. We're going to lose New York. So I actually ended up doing worse than the historic election. Lost by 400,000. I think historically it was only about 100,000 difference. Whew, boy. Okay. Okay, so I'm playing through again, and I corrected some of the mistakes I made last time. For example, being accused of flip-flopping on the issue concerning Civil War pensions. I changed my answer on that one and continued to oppose the expansion of those pensions. I also changed my answer on unity for the Democratic Party up and down the ticket in New York and just basically said I'm not going to say anything. I'll let New York voters decide for themselves. And now we're moving on to the second half. And so far, it does look like things are going much better for me. So we'll see if it stays that way. All right, so I changed my answer on civil rights in the South and spoke strongly against Reconstruction, and that seems to have helped a lot. With 6 questions to go, we're looking really, really solid, 259 to 142, which is much better outcome than last time. And on to the last question. Yeah, I feel like we'll go ahead and focus on New York to be safe. And I think we've actually won it this time. So it was only really 3 questions I changed the answer to, but I feel like that was probably enough to win it for us this time. So let's see. And this goes to show you how easily history could change based on a few different choices. I think this is a fairly accurate representation of what that might look like based on just a couple of things changing in an election. Key moments or key stances on particular issues. So far, nothing has changed. Indiana, there's a change. We won Indiana. That is a change from real history. The keys are going to be New York and Ohio. If we win those, I think that's pretty well it. There's Ohio. All right, I think we've got this election. New York's going to put it in the bag for us. Might even get Illinois. Come on, New York. There's Illinois. Yeah. I think even if Harrison wins New York, we might have this thing. There it is. Hey! We managed to win it, go to the final results. So that's a 116,000 vote win in the electoral or in the popular vote, and the Electoral College swung pretty much opposite. So 233, 168. I think that's about how it went, but in real life, the other way. So let's take a look. Can we see the... There you go. So historical. It's identical historical, just we flipped a couple of states the other direction. Pretty interesting. And actually, even the percentages are the same in both cases. 48.6% for Cleveland in both cases. But the difference, of course, is the popular vote. So there you have it. If there's another campaign you'd like me to check out, let me know. I'm going to put this into the playlist with all of my other campaign trail content, and I will pin in the comment section below a link to that playlist so you can check out all the other ones I've done in the past. Thanks for watching.